Welcome back to the Art of Actual Change. I'm your host, Derek Nielsen, former health specialist turned wildlife, conservation, fine art photographer. Through my many travels around the world, I've met some people who are doing some fascinating work outside themselves to make this planet a better place to live. Each episode, I'll be bringing you these people, letting them tell their stories, and hopefully you'll find inspiration in these stories so that you can go out and make an actual change in your world or the world around you. Today's episode with Tyson is a really interesting one. It is one of a person who was tired of seeing the world suffer and deal with the problems that we're all facing with global warming, the conservation issues around the world, and he had enough. And so he's going to be doing something that most people can't do. He is going to be going on a solo expedition across Iceland from the north of it to the very south, all by himself. It's going to be incredible. I'm anxious to see how it all goes for him. It's a big feat, and I know he's going to be well prepared, and I can't wait to follow along and touch base with him after it's finished. But now what we're going to do is dive into the preparation and the mindset of a man on a mission and what it's going to take to pull this off. So enjoy the episode, and thanks for joining. Welcome back, everyone, to the Art of Actual Change. I have an incredible guest today. His name is Tyson Suda, and Tyson is the eco athlete. And I happened to come across his story, and I had just finished an interview with another gentleman who had just completed this incredible journey across the Boundary Waters Conservation Area. And I found Tyson, and I said, well, this is a gentleman who's about to do something. And I thought it would be an interesting back-to-back interview because, again, I had this person who just finished one and had it be very successful. It got picked up, and he made a change that's happening, being pushed through Congress. It was signed off by the President of the United States. And then I have this next gentleman who's about to do a major journey, and I want him to tell his story. So, Tyson, welcome, and tell me a little bit about what you're doing.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. So I am planning a solo, unsupported, unassisted Iceland crossing. So basically, it's going to go from north to south. It's approximately 365 miles through some of the most rugged, tough terrain, out there on the planet. And when I say unsupported and unassisted, meaning I'm going to carry all of my supplies with me in what we call like a polk sled. So it's something that you would pull, along with you through the snow and the ice and the terrain. And so that's pretty much kind of like what the journeys. I've become very quickly, just in the last few years, a big advocate for climate change awareness. It's happening, it's here, it's now. And so I kind of want to make a stand, if you will. I want to help just bring attention to the issue. And I think in order to do that these days, a person has to really, really go out there on the fringes and do something pretty extraordinary, pretty amazing. So this is a personal journey for me, personal challenge, but then also I want to raise like a very important issue out of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good for you, man. And you're right. I mean, you do have to make a splash these days because there's so many issues, and we're hearing more and more about it with the way that the media is at least covering some of these climate summits. I'm not convinced that enough is happening. I think it's good to have it talking, but majority of people don't realize how serious of an issue this really is. And when you go to places like Iceland, have you been to Iceland before?
I have not.
You're going to love it, first of all. It was probably the first location I've ever traveled to where I saw climate change happening live, like in person. And it blew my mind to watch the glaciers melting at a rate that was causing like rivers flowing to the oceans. And it just clicked for me. Like, that is not sustainable. Like, that is really dangerous. And the volume of water just blew my mind. So you're gonna absolutely fall in love with the country. I'm so excited for you to go there. So
thank you.
What made you choose Iceland?
So when this first came to me, and we can maybe get into this later as far as the root of it, but I actually was looking at Central Asia. So I was looking at Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and into Kyrgyzstan. So there's the old Pamir Highway, which starts down, it technically starts in Mazar-e Sharif, which is in northern Afghanistan, obviously cannot go there these days. But so it goes up through southern Uzbekistan, all the way across Tajikistan, then on up to Kyrgyzstan. So that's the route that I initially was looking at, because Central Asia is they're going through a lot with climate change as well. They're having glaciers that are melting, like the snow melt happening in the mountains. So that's affecting the water for the farming and just for the civil populations. Well, when I started reaching out to the U.S. Embassy in each respective country, unfortunately, the land crossing between Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan is closed due to COVID.
Okay. Yeah.
So that completely disrupted my initial route. And so I thought, okay, where else, like on the planet, is there a place that's maybe warming at a faster rate than anywhere else? A place that's going to be a very, very personal challenge for me, just in its geography, its environment. And then a place I've always maybe wanted to go, and Iceland came up. Iceland is, I think, last time I checked, it's one of the fastest, if not the fastest, warming countries in the northern hemisphere.
Man, yeah.
So that kind of met that check, as far as a place that needs climate change awareness now. It meets the standard I was looking for, as far as just the challenge, the rugged terrain, the remoteness. So Iceland is kind of, I stumbled upon it when I was looking for a second alternative place.
Yeah. What to me is fascinating about Iceland is, yes, they're being impacted by climate change at a rate that most other countries are not, but they're also one of the most sustainable countries doing things the right way, right? With the geothermal energy.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it's incredible. Yeah. I hope you get a little extra time to spend there and talk with some people that are on the forefront of like their energy and stuff.
I just came across a video the other day on the geothermal energy that they're doing, and how, they're really leading the pack in that. It's impressive.
Yeah. So
but then at the same time, I mean, there's always two sides of the coin. The negative aspect, I guess, of that is just of all the greenhouse gases that are getting released, as well through that geothermal energy. So it's just like, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an environmentalist.
Yeah.
I don't have the answers. But yeah, anyway, it's interesting though, the geothermal aspect. There's a positive, there's a pro and a con to it.
Yeah, definitely. So what made you want to start doing more for the planet? Like, what was it in your personal experience that you were like, I have to do something, I can't sit on the sideline anymore? Like, what made you want to take that step?
Well, so I would say that since I was a kid, I was probably exposed to conservation. So my father, he was a fish and game wildlife enforcement officer up in Washington State.
All right.
So since I was a kid, I was exposed to just conservation and preservation, of the environment and the wildlife. But of course, it didn't really sink in then. But I've always served like a higher cause. So, I was in the military for a good number of years. I've been a humanitarian aid worker. I'm now a health and fitness coach. So I've always wanted to serve something greater than just myself.
Yeah.
And then I would say just, especially in my travels abroad as an aid worker, I mean, I've started to see the results of climate change due to mass migration. I spend a lot of time in the Middle East. So you're seeing mass migration coming out of Africa and the Middle East. And I saw that as an aid worker. And a lot of that was, sure, some of it was due to conflict and strife and war, but a lot of it's also due to climate change.
Right.
So the gears have kind of been turning in my head regarding climate change advocacy for, I would say for a good 6-7 years now. But just in the last few years, I mean, the events that are happening, the natural disaster events that are happening are just catastrophic, and they're just constant. They're nonstop. Yeah, nonstop. Yeah. And so there's a little bit of a backstory. So about 6 months ago, I underwent a major surgery. I had ruptured my bicep tendon.
Yikes. Yeah.
And, it's oftentimes during a time when we're doing self-reflection that maybe we want to think about, just more out of life, or what we're doing, or where our life is going direction. And I'm sure most all of that felt that, especially during the pandemic, with the lockdown.
Definitely.
But it was during the surgery that I was like, okay, when I recover from the surgery, like I want to go off and I want to do something, like I want to serve another purpose, a higher cause. And it hit me really quick. I'm like, there's no greater cause right now than climate change
It affects us
awareness.
all, like
Yeah,
all of us.
yeah. And so that's kind of like what springboarded me into into pursuing this expedition for climate change was, just doing some self-reflection after my surgery about 6 months ago.
Awesome. So
Yeah,
we'll dive into that. I want to learn about the details of the route later, but
yeah,
what I want to know is, like, what are you doing to get the word out there? Like, here I am talking to you. I found you, so that's a good
yeah.
start. And so,
And
like,
I really appreciate it too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what's next? Like, are you going to be reaching out to like trail running groups like my last guy did, like Patagonia, like news agencies? Like, where are you
Yeah,
going with it to, like, not just do the trek and be like, for yourself and the
yeah,
your circle that, like, damn, this guy's a badass. Like, he did this really amazing thing. Like, how are you going to get it out there as a bigger
yeah.
project?
Yeah, so right now, like I'm everything. I'm like my own marketer,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm like my own behind the scenes manager. It's just me, and I'm like an unknown entity. I mean, I'm just like a regular Joe. I'm not big on social media. And so I'm doing so many cold call emails. I'm just reaching out to everyone that I can think of. Companies, environmental groups, magazines, outdoorsy magazines. Again, companies that are involved in outdoor apparel and gear. I've reached out to the U.S. Embassy. I've reached out to the Iceland government.
Yeah.
So I'm doing as much as I can, and I've gotten very little feedback because a lot of people are like, the feedback I have gotten is, "Wow, this is absolutely very commendable, but let's talk about it when you come back."
Ah,
you know,
yeah, yeah. And you're like, I
and I
want it.
get that. I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
that.
it's fine, right? Yeah.
Yeah, especially from an editorial from media. It'll make a great story once it's maybe finished.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, man. I'm just reaching out to anybody and everybody that I can.
Yeah.
I created my Instagram page solely just for this expedition, and so I'm just trying to promote it. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's like companies that I'm sure I mean, you got to look at them like up and down the list, like Solomon boots. So, I don't know who you use for
Mhm.
boots, but like every single brand, like piece of
Yep.
clothing, whatever it is,
Yep.
reach out to them, and be like, hey, I will promote you on this thing if
Yeah.
you put it in your website or your blog or
Yep.
your social media, and like
Yep.
let it spiral into something. And
Yeah.
if you do that enough, I'm sure you have, but it's like when I listened to my last gentleman who did it and Patagonia picked him up, like Patagonia is huge. Like everybody knows Patagonia
Absolutely.
clothing, right? And so like,
Yeah.
and it was for him going to like a summit on trail running and running into an eco athlete that was like one of the greatest trail runners currently. And she
Mhm.
jumped on, and then before you knew it, like it started to snowball. So how
Yeah.
much time do you have before you're going to do this? When are you going to take on the trek?
Late March.
Late March. Okay.
Yeah, so I've been in contact with Iceland Search and Rescue, and initially I was looking at February, and they highly advised against it just due to the fact that, especially the route that I'll be going over what's called the Iceland Highlands.
Yep.
So it's a very desolate, remote, very, very rough environment. And they said in February they can experience hurricane force winds. So when you throw in a snowstorm, hurricane force winds, it just it wouldn't be a smart choice, to
Right.
try a solo expedition during that time. So I've pushed it to late March, which in Iceland, technically it's spring for all of us, but in Iceland it still is winter.
Yeah.
I read a report of an expedition of three people that rode across very similar route to the one I'm going to be doing. They went over the Highlands, and they did it in April, and it was on fat tire bikes. They did it in April a couple of years ago,
This
and at
Chris
one point
Picard?
yeah,
Is this
yeah, yeah,
Chris?
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, with Rebecca Rush.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a trio of them: Rebecca Rush, Chris, and I forget the other gentleman's name, but yeah. So I read the kind of like an after action report on their experience, and they went in April, and at one point they were going over the Highlands, and they experienced minus 23 degrees Celsius temps. So even going in March and April, I'm still gonna. That's still is winter.
Yeah, yeah.
Regardless of what the calendar says, if it's spring, that still is winter time.
Have you reached
Yeah.
out to him or any of them? Because he's so well connected. It'd be a good,
I have. And
yeah,
again, it's just a matter of, I mean, I can only imagine how inundated, they are with messages,
yeah, 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 yeah.
So I have reached out, whether I get a response, I don't know, but, I'll try again. It's not going to be just a one-time effort. If, I'll give it, say, maybe a month, and then whoever I haven't heard from, I'm just going to keep trying to get in contact.
That's
So,
it. They say like, what is it?
yeah.
You're like 1 in every 10 email tries gets
Yeah,
answered.
yeah,
So.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Excellent. I was there in March myself and it was, the weather would change so quickly. I
yeah,
was camping I was camping in snow, and then I was
yeah,
camping and it was really warm out. The nice thing is you're gonna have a lot of daylight.
yeah. This is
that
true. Yeah,
that time of year, you're coming into the end of,
yeah,
so that'll be great.
yeah,
How
yeah.
are you preparing for this? What are you doing to get your body ready? Do you have a lot of experience in that sort of activity?
No, so like the furthest, like I've done a through hike before, and that was 150 miles. But that wasn't solo. That was with a group. That was supported. So completely different. It was in the summertime.
Yeah.
um, so as far as physical preparedness, so I'm a health fitness coach. I'm a CrossFit trainer. I bike to and from work, so I don't like own a car. That's kind of part of my climate change, you know, uh, path that I'm going down.
Yeah.
So just trying to make a difference. So I bike about 20 miles a day. Um, I I train throughout the week. I'm not doing anything specific as far as training. I'm just maintaining my fitness because an expedition like this, I'm fairly confident it's going to be much more mental than it is physical. And I'm very confident with my physical abilities. I mean, I know what I do on a daily basis, but this is just going to be a mental test unlike anything I've ever gone through.
Yeah.
Um, and when I did like this 150-mile through hike, there was no preparation for it. It was just, hey, we just picked up our packs and we just like went.
Yeah.
So I think as long as a person, at least for me, I can say as long as I'm maintaining a pretty good level of fitness and health, then the rest it's just going to be it's going to be a mental challenge is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So on that note, I'm actually doing like I'm really into meditation. So I'll do a lot of meditation. I'll do like a lot of visualization training. So like
Hmm.
I'll actually sit and I'll actually visualize, even though I've never been to Iceland, I'll visualize me like pulling this sled, across the snow. I'll visualize this hellacious windstorm, me having to push through it all. Visualize me setting up my tent and having to melt snow to boil water. So I'm doing like a lot of visualization training. And I think there's a lot of merit that comes from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the cool things is where you're going, you can pretty much drink the water out of the
Yeah.
streams, so
Yep.
it's not like you're going to have
Yeah.
to be carrying like an entire supply of water across a desert
Exactly.
or something,
Yep. Hmm.
So that's pretty intense. What sort of weight are you think you're going to be carrying with your
Yeah, I
gear
would
and your,
say rough the rough estimates right now are probably going to be around 75 to 100 pounds. But that weight, fortunately, will go down as the expedition continues because a lot of that weight is going to be my food. So as I'm eating and consuming food, well, then that weight will go down.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what are you going to be consuming? What's on your menu?
Yeah. So speaking of like just sponsorships, I actually got sponsored by a company called the Carnivore Bar.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're based out of Missouri. And so the Carnivore Bar, basically what they make is like a pemmican bar. And if you know pemmican, that's an old Native American, North American indigenous food that they would use during the wintertime when food was scarce. And so basically what it is, it's rendered beef fat, which is tallow, mixed with like dehydrated meat. So it's very, very high in fat and moderate in protein. And so a lot of polar and Arctic explorers, this is actually what they've used for fuel before, especially back in the early 1900s when a lot of your Nordic and UK explorers were heading down to Antarctica. They actually went to like the Inuit tribe up in northern Canada, and they're like, how do you all survive like the winters? And that's kind of how pemmican, became known within like the explorer community. And I mean, the early Europeans during the fur trade, they picked up on it early on too. When they started bringing fur over, they ran into the indigenous people and they came across pemmican. So it's a great source of fuel for extreme cold winter environments. So my
Wow.
body's going to be primarily burning off of fat. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that'll be different for you. I'm
Yeah,
sure. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yep.
So tell me a little bit about the trek. You're going from north to south or south to north? Where are you going?
North to south.
North to south. Okay.
Yep.
And where does it start out of?
So it starts out in the northernmost point of Iceland, and there's a lighthouse there. Okay. Let me just look at my note really quick. I am probably gonna butcher this, but it's the Hanhafnar Tangi Lighthouse. It's a very long word.
Man, I tell you what, after spending time in Iceland, it is probably the hardest language to pronounce.
Yeah,
I would look at a word that had like 20 letters in it, and then I would
sure.
hear an Icelandic person pronounce it, and it was like one short phrase. It's like,
Yeah,
wait a minute, how did
yeah,
you
yeah,
get that from the thing that I was looking at? So yeah, good
yeah,
luck with that when you're there,
yeah,
because those
yeah,
words are tough.
yeah, yeah. So essentially, the northernmost point, there's a lighthouse there, and then
Okay.
it's going to go all the way down south through the highlands to the southernmost point, and there's another lighthouse down there, and that's at the Dire Gole Lighthouse.
Okay.
Yeah. So essentially, it's going to be about 365 miles, yeah, north to south. Yeah, going through the highlands, going right through the thick of Iceland. So it's also kind of known as like the Iceland Divide because it kind of bisects the tectonic plates that are there.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty
Yeah,
wild.
yeah,
What is your daily like expected travel time? Have you mapped that out yet? Like, what are you gonna be doing per
yeah.
day?
I have. I mean, I haven't set like waypoints, but I've set like basically a parameter of okay, this is like probably how fast I would do it. And again, I'm not going for speed. This isn't like a fastest known time.
Right.
This
Yeah.
is just, a solo kind of a slow
Survive.
travel
Get there.
expedition. So based on my food and my fuel that I've factored in, I'm giving myself anywhere from about 18, 19 days all the way up to like 25 days to complete it. Okay. If I can complete it sooner, then great. So that's going to put me at roughly an average of, if my calculations were correct, I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but anywhere from like say 16 to maybe in the low 20s as far as mileage a day.
Yeah.
And if I can average 2 miles an hour, give or take, plus or minus, yeah. So if I'm putting in, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, then it'll be manageable, it'll be doable.
That's awesome. It's
Yeah.
gonna be where can people follow along while you're doing it? I mean, I don't know how great the cell service and or
Sure. Yeah. Well,
but
because the expedition is going to be fairly short, and I'm really focused on just doing this for, again, a personal challenge and
yep.
journey, and then yeah, of course, for climate advocacy and change and awareness. But I'm not going to be posting during the actual expedition.
Yeah, makes
I
sense.
know that there is cell service in parts of the Highlands, and I know that because of Chris Buckard and Rebecca
Yeah.
Rush. Like, they mentioned it in their after action from when they did their bike expedition, but that's not my intent. So I'm going to obviously then upload and post everything immediately after.
Yeah. Do you have a scheduled plan yet? Like how you want to present it?
I don't, this is new for me. This is new territory,
Yeah.
so I don't, yeah, right now, I'm kind of in reach out mode, I'm trying to get the attention, of media and companies and just the general public. And then once I'm done with it, and I mean, I'm just going to post everything, on off to the Instagram page. So again, some of the media companies that reached out in return with interest are like, absolutely, when you get back, let's see some video, let's see some footage, and we'll do a story on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been practicing or watching some of the ways that someone like may document this sort of journey or voyage, and like
Yeah,
what
yeah,
like
sure. I've definitely been pulling up because again, there's a number of people that have done like the fat tire bike expeditions across
yeah.
Iceland, and there's a lot of videos out there. So I've watched their videos, I've read kind of their planning, so I've done a lot of research, and of course I'll look on Instagram, who else is doing, extreme, expeditions or just extreme pursuits, and how they present it. So yeah, you pick up, little tools, if you will, and put them in your toolbox, little tricks of the trade. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What are you expecting the response to be from people, and how do you think this is going to help like raise awareness for climate change?
I mean, as far as the response, I'm not quite sure, because
Yeah.
again, like we said early on, nowadays there's just so many like there's so many issues going on in the world, and so many good people trying to advocate for them. It's like, how do you get yourself out there? How do you get in the spotlight?
Yeah.
And we're just flooded with information these days. Whether it's the news, whether it's social media. So how do you garner the attention? It's difficult. So I don't quite know. I just know I'm going to head out and I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And if it grabs people's attention, then I'll kind of just let it, let the wind blow it from there.
Yeah.
As far as can this and will this help address climate change advocacy? Absolutely, I think that it will. I think within the outdoor athlete community, and this is kind of one of my root causes for doing this, is I think the time has come that we kind of need to set aside like first peaks and first ascents and fastest known times. And I think we need to set that aside. And that's great for all those achievements. But I think that if you're an athlete, especially a professional athlete in the outdoor community, we need to start making climate change like the priority and the reason.
Absolutely.
Not so much, oh, I climbed this peak, or the fastest known time, or again, I'm not taking anything away, but I just think this, due to what we're facing, as a global society with climate change, the shift in priority should be addressing climate change and not. So we need to be doing some like more inward kind of pursuits. I mean, I'm doing this for something bigger than myself, than facing outward of, hey, everyone, like, look what I've done. So
yeah. It's pretty cool because that community is becoming one of the pioneers and leaders because they're experiencing, they've seen it, a lot of their office is in the place that's being affected by climate change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see them. And then not only them, but like brands that support them that have made billions of dollars off of selling people puffy jackets and waterproof shoes, realizing that we need to take, if you, and I don't mean to keep going back to Patagonia, but they're a great example of it. When you go to their website, it doesn't even mention clothing on the first page. It's about climate change and activism and throwaway fashion. And you have to go to a separate tab to find their product, which as a brand, you would think that would be like brand suicide. Like, what are they thinking? But they're taking it that seriously because they've seen it and they have a great leader. So it's really inspiring to see not only the brands, but then the people who are in the kind of the lead of wearing those brands on the magazine covers. The eco athletes like yourself, gentlemen like who was the guy who did free solo? I'm blanking on his name. Alex. Arnold. He's big into environmental advocacy, and Jimmy Chin who was the photographer who produced it, and it's just so great to see those guys doing that.
And Killian Jornet, like I'm sure he's probably the leader of the pack right now. So he has like the Killian Jornet Foundation. And from that, they kind of created what's called the Athlete Climate Academy.
Okay.
And so they're really starting to kind of bridge that gap between outdoor athletes and like climate change and like environmentalists and scientists. And so Killian Jornet, I mean, he's right up there as far as leading the pack on that.
That's awesome. Have you contacted them? I'm sure.
I have.
Nice.
Wait and see,
I'm pushing your cause out there.
I appreciate it.
Definitely. It's an endless, I do this as well. I contact people constantly, just to get them on for the show and the podcast, but also to network and see what's going on. I support a bunch of organizations. The Conservation Alliance is a big one. And it took a lot of emails to get the response to this. So man, keep up on it. What do you think are 2 or 3 things that like an everyday person can do to get involved in climate change, like that isn't taking on some massive project like you're doing? Like that is awesome, and I would love if everyone could do that, but like the reality is that most people can't, but they still need to do something. So what do you think, like 2 or 3 things that people can do to help in the cause that aren't like,
I mean, I think honestly, you can just start in your own home, in your community. I mean, let's just start like with the basics, like just recycling, using public transportation, food waste, maybe consuming less food, being cognizant of where your food comes from. What are the farming practices? And that applies whether you're vegan on one end of the spectrum or you're carnivore on the other. Like, how is your food produced? What are the farming practices? So I think just being self-aware of just your own home, your own community, how can you maybe be more resourceful, less wasteful, use less plastic? That would be,
Yeah.
absolutely. If we can get away from plastic, just the more and more a person can do. So beyond the basics, then I would say, get involved in maybe some kind of community efforts, whether it's a cleanup, whether it's getting involved in an environmental NGO. And if it's something you feel you want to get involved in, then just jump online and do your own research and homework, on how can you get involved. But I think if it can start within the home and the community, it's just gonna, like, that's how it just spreads.
Yeah.
So I think we got to get the basics right first, and that just starts kind of in the home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's absolutely, it's like every little bit contributes to something.
Yeah.
Like every action, like when I'm
Yeah.
walking the streets, if I see like a face mask, like pick it up and throw it
Yeah.
away, right? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
like, don't walk past the things or let it be somebody else's problem. Just do it, take the
Yeah.
next
I mean,
step.
because collectively it's all of our problem,
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
because climate change doesn't discriminate. So
It doesn't.
it's yeah.
Yeah, and when you mentioned it before, you were talking about mass migrations across Africa, and
Mhm.
oftentimes those conflicts that are not just the climate change moving people, the conflicts moving people, but often the conflicts are driven by climate change, right?
Absolutely.
Drought and territorial disputes
Yeah.
and things
Yep.
like that, and
Yep.
it's really truly affecting people. And
Yeah.
and,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
so
we see conflict today over water,
yeah.
one country wanting to build a dam, the neighboring country opposed to it. I mean, so it's already happening, Yep.
Yeah, and even in the United States, there was the West, like out by you
Mhm.
guys with the drought and the wildfires and everything that's happening. They were trying to figure out how they can pipe water from the Great Lakes
Yeah.
in my region,
Yeah.
and people are like, "Well, that could work, but that's not a solution. You're not
Exactly.
addressing the problem. Like you're just
Yeah.
going to cause another problem somewhere else,"
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is pretty interesting. So, do you think honestly that this planet, there's a chance like that it's too late, or that what we're doing is buying time, or do you think that there's a collective effort, if we all participate, that we can save this beautiful blue planet?
Sure. Yeah, again, not being a scientist or environmentalist,
Yeah.
just from what I know from, I mean, put it this way, we're well behind the curve. We're in reactive mode, and unfortunately, I think it is too late for certain things. I don't know what all those things are. But I do know though that we're like in a dire, like, short window of opportunity. This is according to, the environmentalists and the scientists. And if we reach or exceed that 1.5 degrees Celsius, that the UN and everyone is saying is going to be a red line, then it's like a point of no return. So I think, I think in some ways the shutdown, lockdown with the pandemic globally. I mean, you look at how, like, air pollution, like, went down with that,
Yeah,
you
it was
know.
wild.
So, and how even, like, ecosystems kind of started to kind of bounce back and heal and all that. And so I'm not saying that that's what the world has to do, like, because I just don't think I don't think that can happen either, like a full lockdown and shutdown, because there's no end in that either.
Right.
That's not the answer. But I think what it goes to prove, though, is that we do have this short window of opportunity. And then I think that the earth, like nature, is very resourceful and resilient. And if we give it a chance to heal, it can heal. But again, it's going to take a collective effort, and it's going to take leadership from the top,
Yeah.
of governments worldwide. I'm afraid, though, that and even just kind of following briefly the COP 26, the conference out of Glasgow there. I'm afraid of just too much bureaucracy, still
Yeah.
getting in the way. And it's unfortunate. Again, I do think that it can be fixed, again, or at least preserved. I don't know if we can. I don't think we can completely reverse some of the damage. We just can't. I think we need to be realistic about that.
Yeah.
But I do think, though, that we do have a fine window of opportunity to still preserve what we have. But we have to act, like, hard and fast here and now.
Yeah.
And it's going to take a collective effort.
Yeah. Do you have people in your own circle or in your extended circles that are climate change deniers? And if you do, what do you say to them in like the kindest, polite way to like still maintain that friendship, but like still get the
Yeah.
message across to them?
No, actually, I can say, fortunately, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I have anyone that is, standing on the pedestal, really, promoting advocacy for climate change, but I don't say that I know anyone in my circle though that are deniers. I think at this point, there's no denying it anymore,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm fortunate enough. I mean, where I live, and I politics are what they are, and
Yeah.
the science is challenging because it's changing and evolving and it's new. Like even the
Hmm.
pandemic is new science. Like a lot of this stuff, and I get the skepticism that people have. Um, what I view is the best thing that I can do, and people like yourselves, is exactly what you're doing. Show them firsthand or secondhand through a video, through things that you can, you know, this is what a melting glacier looks like. And, hold
Yeah.
the camera on it for a
Sure.
minute or 10 minutes and just show them the volume of water that is
Yep.
emptying into the ocean. And to see that
Yeah.
footage, you can't turn your back to that sort of thing.
No.
And so if there's anyone out there that even that I come across, I'm like, well, here's an image that I took in a place that used to look like this
Hmm.
and now looks like this.
Yep.
And yeah, I just wish more people could get out there and travel the world and see, some of the sites that are
Sure.
changing. It's like, man.
Yeah. But again, like, I mean, it's happening right out our front door though, too.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to go far. I mean, look at the wildfires, in the West, and then the flooding, in the Northeast, and even in the Midwest, where you are. I
Yeah.
mean, it's happening right out our front doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So where can people find you? Where can they follow along? What are your
Yeah.
handles?
So again, I just have the one social media page. It's just my Instagram. So
Okay.
it's e.echo.athlete.
Okay.
On my IG. They can follow along that way. I did create like a GoFundMe. If anyone does want to contribute through, monetary, financial, donation, they certainly can. And they can find the link to that on my Instagram. Right now, I'm solely funding this expedition, and out of my own pocket, just because I'm willing to go that in, all
Yeah.
in, to do this expedition for climate change awareness. So anything extra would just be, added bonus. So if somebody, if they want to follow along, my Instagram, if they want to make a donation, there's the link on my Instagram to that GoFundMe.
Nice. Any other social media?
No, that's it.
I know.
Yeah.
People are like trying to stay off it as much as they possibly can, but
Yeah.
unfortunately for something like what you're doing, it's like it
Yeah.
could
But
really be a
I
big
can't think of a better platform though than Instagram, just for the pictures and the video.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Excellent. So what's the number? What's the number you're looking for help on your GoFundMe?
Initially, I put 5,000.
Yeah.
As far as my calculations, when it's all said and done, it's going to be anywhere between 10 and 12,000. That's what it's going to cost.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, that's everything. That's gear, that's flights, that's food. In February, I'm going up to Alaska to participate in the Iditarod Trail Invitational, like their winter training camp.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's going to be a really, really good kind of testing ground for me, for my environment. Yeah, so that'll be in the Alaskan backcountry up in February. So I've had to pay for that, as part of my training. I kind of look at it as part of my training and preparation.
Totally. I mean, when you mentioned like what your training mindset was and everything, like I was like, man, I think you might want to do something like what you just described. You're doing,
Yeah.
like trekking something, pulling it in a cold environment through uneven terrain.
And there's probably no better course for me to go through than the Iditarod Trail winter training camp, because they teach you. I mean, you'll walk out of that course knowing everything you need to know initially, at a basic level, as far as just winter extreme endurance.
Yeah, survival techniques, like all that stuff.
Yeah, moisture management, food, clothing, just all that. Yeah.
And I think that'd be an interesting angle for people to follow along with, is like learning those sort of things, the tidbits of like moisture management. Like people probably don't even think of that, but like controlling that can be life or death of hypothermia.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. There's kind of a saying with like Arctic explorers that if you sweat, you die. When you're in that kind of extreme cold environment. And again, I'm not saying Iceland's going to be that cold.
Could be.
In fact, Alaska is going to be much colder than what Iceland will be. But nonetheless, I'm gonna like learn a lot about moisture management, which is gonna be crucial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Tyson, man, I look forward to following along,
Yeah.
and I
Appreciate it,
think
Derek.
this is definitely going to be something that people are going to tune into.
I hope
And
so, you know? Yeah.
yeah, this is something that I don't know. I found you quickly on Instagram and reached
Sure.
out to you right away. So I think that people in our community who are into saving the planet, who are into environmentalism, who are into just people doing really awesome things outside of themselves, who to try to make an actual change, it's inspiring, and we all are
Yeah.
looking for something to be inspired by, and
Yeah.
especially in a time when the planet is screaming at us.
Yeah. It is.
People like yourself stepping up and saying, all right, I'll hear that call, and this is how I'm
Yeah.
going to do it.
Yeah.
It's really
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah. I hope, and if I can just make some small impact or just, bring more awareness, via this expedition and, to prove that, we can still go out and do like these pursuits and travel in a very low to zero carbon kind of footprint kind of manner. And, again, if somebody can kind of grab onto what I'm doing and be inspired by it, to whether they go off for some, extreme pursuit or whether it's just to get involved in climate change, I think it's just it's a collective effort, as we
Absolutely.
as people, as community, as society. So
Yeah. Well, I think your story will quickly grow on Instagram following. Everyone
I hope
check him
so.
out. Yeah, like just all those little things that I could see you putting in there. That's useful information, right? It's not just a pretty picture. Like people kind of get bored of pretty pictures. Like when you're
Yeah,
posting on Instagram, one of the most powerful things is like who are you serving with each
yeah,
post?
yeah,
And what you're doing is you're going to be telling people and teaching people about things that can serve them. It's outdoor life, it's
mhm,
training, it's environmentalism, it's
yeah,
activism, it's all these things, and each of those could be nuggets that people would really find your page as one of their favorites quickly. So
for sure. Yeah,
yeah, man, looking forward to it. Well, everyone, check out Tyson. Thanks so much for doing this for the planet. Thanks for taking the time to join me here. I'm going to follow you along. You definitely have someone who's going to be paying attention to what you're up
good.
to. When you get finished with it all, I'd love to chime back in and have you back on and say, hey, tell me about it. Let's, help promote it, get it out there.
Yeah.
If I can sneak in between your large media circuit that you're going to be doing afterwards. Yeah, I'll have to check back in, but good luck with that. Enjoy every step along the way. It's such a beautiful country, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it, man.
Yeah, I sure appreciate it, Derek. Yeah, thank you for your time and thank you for what you're doing as well to bring attention and awareness, through your photography, through the interviews that you do, your podcast, and just your conservation, efforts as well.
Awesome, man. Well, I look
Yeah.
forward to it. And if I end up out in Vegas doing some environmental stuff, my printing company is actually out in Vegas. So if I'm ever out that way, I'll have to hit
Okay.
you up and do a
Please
do a
do.
workout session together or go for a hike or something, man.
Yeah, we'll go hike Red Rock. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Cool.
All right,
Well, thanks a
man.
lot, Tyson. Best of luck with the trip, and everyone follow him along on the Echo Athlete, however you pronounce it.
Yeah,
But check it out. He's going to be rocking it and
yeah,
putting all sorts of awesome tidbits out there for the whole preparation for this incredibly important and fantastic journey. So thanks a lot, Tyson.
yeah. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you so much, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. I thought Tyson's story was fantastic. He's a great human being. You can see his passion and his enthusiasm for this planet and for his mission. It's infectious. And it's people like this that I'm trying to get out there, their message out there, their stories out there, and that we can inspire people around the globe to do things that are outside themselves to make this planet for you, myself, and generations to come a better place to live. And if you were inspired by today's story, please like and share this on any social media platform. Leave a comment in our review section here, and please just post this on everything that you think that would be beneficial. I really want to get these messages out there to people, share these stories, and try to inspire people to save this planet, because it's a beautiful place, and I really, truly know that we can all do this together. It's going to take an army, but it starts with the village, and it starts with you. So You know what time it is. Go out there and make an actual change in your world or the world around you.